You alright everyone, I thought I'd do this video as a follow-up to the last one I did, telling you about any paranormal experiences that I'd had over the years. And I also mentioned a few that my mum had experienced in that haunted house that we lived in when I was a kid. But I realised there was a few other little experiences that I forgot to mention. Some from me, some from my mum, and so on. So the first one is when I was about 16, 17, I got put on this work placement from Kidderminster College to go to the Severn Valley Railway in Kidderminster. And I got put in this bit that I suppose you could call it the workshop. Because they used to have put all the old steam train carriages in there to clean them up inside, outside, underneath, paint them up, probably even restore a few in general, I imagine. And this place was old. You could see it inside and outside, and you could sort of feel it too in the air. You know, there was a lot there, and there was a lot of stuff stored upstairs as well from over the years. And the one day I was up there on my own, and I was waiting for my friend and the college assistant that used to come with us. So I was waiting for them to come back up, so I was on my own. And I thought I'd have a little wander around because I was curious. And I went around this one bit up there, and it was quite like a sort of thin bit you could walk through, and there was like stuff one side of me, I think it was shelving, the other side was stuff all on shelves. And it led you to this sort of bit which looked to me like two massive doors in the floor and a crane system over it. Which, whether it was still used at that point, I don't know, but it was there. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I just got this feeling as if someone had come up behind me and, like watching me or something. It was not a nice feeling. I suddenly out of nowhere got the tingles all over, goosebumps, hair standing on end, that kind of thing. And it just didn't feel right at all. It just didn't feel nice. It was as if someone had come up to me and as if they were making me feel like, look, I don't know, you're not meant to be there, I don't know, get out or something. But so I turned around, didn't see anyone there, but I left that little area and then the feeling went again. So it felt to me like someone did come up to me, like I said. But I'd love to investigate it at that place now, but being a sort of workshop and the work that they do in there and all the tools, I don't think they'd allow it somehow, but who knows what the future holds. The next one was when I worked at the range. One of them, because the range had its own little ghost story. Everyone said there was a ghost that haunted it. And and I'll explain where the range is in Kidderminster. Where that is and the other shops next to it is on this site called Carpet Trades Way. And back in the day, it used to be, well, as you can guess on the title, it was carpet factories there. And I think the spirit that haunts the range must have been someone that worked in one of them carpet factories, because health and safety wasn't a big thing back in the day, of course, all them moons ago. And when those factories would have been there, so an accident, as far as, in my opinion, would have been highly likely. But that's just a theory. But that's just a bit of an explanation. But I remember going into the polytunnel. Now, we all used to go in at about 6 in the morning, so no customers or anything. And I was in the polytunnel. I went to unlock the automatic doors in there. And I just heard this, what sounded like a tone of voice from the other side of the tunnel. Keep in mind, it's not a massive tunnel, no, so you can see to the other end of it clearly. I was the only one in there. And it sounded like a tone of voice, sort of trying to say something to me, but I couldn't make out what. But I tried calling out saying, is anyone there? And I got my spirit box out, which I did happen to carry with me that morning, so I tried. Absolutely nothing. So that was interesting. Another one was a friend of mine and Gary's that used to work with us at the range. Me and this friend of ours were chatting in the warehouse. I think we were funny enough chatting about anything paranormal. And more so, I'm pretty sure we were chatting about the ghost that haunts the range. We were the only ones in the warehouse, and as we were chatting away, you could hear what sounded like someone tapping on the metal upstairs. So that was like quite, compelling, really. You just happen to chat about all this kind of stuff on your own in the warehouse, and you can hear what distinctively sounds like some tapping. And again, this was in the morning where there's no customers or anything, so not all the staff are in, and So yeah, it was a bit weird. Another one, which I'm holding my phone. Another one that another friend of mine and Gary's that worked with us at the range. she told me, I think it was a story she got told, and she told me, was the deputy manager of the range got woken up, I think it was probably on his phone, I imagine, saying that the alarms were going off at the store. And this is when he would have been in bed, so early hours of the morning kind of thing. So naturally he has to go to the store, make sure it hadn't been broke into, stuff like that. And it turns out when he got there, the only thing that had set off the alarm was a plant pot in the polytunnel, which had fallen over. Now keep in mind, these plants are all on big, wide shelving, so they can't just fall off easy. And they were always placed sort of proper, firmly on the shelf, you know. None of them would have been placed on the end. And so he went and saw that, he puts it back, goes home, and as soon as he gets home, the alarm goes off again, so he has to go all the way back to the store, and it turns out the same plant in the same area had fell over again. And again, in the polytunnel where I thought, oh, I'm certain I heard a voice, or some tone of voice, so I thought that was interesting as well. So, yeah, whatever haunts that store, I don't think it's anything nasty by any means, but it's interesting, and I do believe it is someone from the old carpet factory days, but that's just my theory. Another one is, I'll quickly mention this, was my partner Becky. I used to work at the cinema in Kidderminster when it was the real cinema, and I used to work there serving customers and everything else, and she used to do like the morning cleaning there. And she said that the one day she was in the one cinema room, and this cinema was known to be haunted, and I always tried to capture something. I always hoped to see something. I never did. But she was cleaning the one room, and she saw the seats. If anyone who knows a cinema seat knows that in order for the seat to go down, you have to apply pressure. And she said she saw one of them literally go down on its own, and then as she looked up to the back of the cinema, by the exit door, she could see what looked like a blue mist just sort of hovering by towards the door. And I just couldn't believe it, because I'd worked there about 2 years and never got anything like that. I always hoped. And she'd only worked there for a short time. She experienced those two things. I was like, you've got to be joking. I did take some pictures once in that same screen that she saw this in, but to see if I caught anything on camera. I don't know. I think those pictures have vanished now, but as far as I remember, I don't think I got anything really compelling on it. There was stuff that could have been orbs, but could have been dust, because people had just left the room, and, you know, there's rubbish everywhere and whatnot. So I don't know, but she had that experience. The next one that I remember is a few that my mum said. Now, the first two I'll mention are are ghost based, and these were at the house she grew up with as a kid at my nan and granddad's. And she said that some nights she'd hear what clearly sounded like her wardrobe getting opened and her clothes being thrown on the floor, and when she would look in the morning, it was. And that used to scare her. She said she used to hide under the blanket. And another one she told me was like, she used to get this feeling as if someone was at the end of the bed grabbing like the blanket and like sort of tugging at it, like this sort of motion. And that used to freak her out as well. And then, but it went after a while. I don't know how long it was. It had vanished and stopped happening. But I know when I came along and I'd have sleepovers at my nan and granddad's, I never experienced anything like that. I knew the stories even as a kid, as she told me, those two stories, but I never experienced anything like that. So whatever it was must have got bored and moved on. But she also told me another two stories. One she experienced, and the other one I don't think she experienced. I think it was something she got told as she told me. But the first one she experienced was again at my nan and granddad's house, and she looked out the window one night and saw over in the distance towards the old sugar beet factory in Kidderminster, which is no longer there, but Google it, you should find plenty of pictures. And you had this big chimney and these two big silos, and she could see what looked like different coloured lights just sort of hovering around there. And then they just disappeared, which is interesting. And the other story that I'm pretty sure she wasn't there for this one. I'm pretty certain she got told it from one of my uncles, and then she told me. But it happened before I was born. I think it was one of my uncles and friends were over on the Devil Spitfall Rock, which is on the bottom half of the Burlish Top, called the Bullet Pitch. And the Burlish Top is where me and Gary did our first YouTube video and got all those voices. But this was on the bottom half, and this was at night time. They were all there, and she told me that they saw like these, again, like different coloured lights hovering over in the sky, and then disappeared. To which they all basically crapped themselves and basically legged it back home. So two UFO-y sort of experiences in Kitty before I was born. You know, I thought that was interesting to know. Another one she did tell me, but this was my godmother. She's also sadly passed away now. My mum told me that my godmother told her that when she was a kid, I think she lived on a farm or something. I think it was near some hills or something like that. And she told me that my godmother woke up one night and looked out the window and seen this light coming down from the sky, and this bright light, and it sort of shone on her, so through the window. And then the next minute, that light had vanished, and when she looked at the time, about a couple of hours or so had passed. But she hadn't experienced those hours pass. So it is almost as if she was, I don't know, I suppose you could say frozen in time, but everything else weren't. But I thought that was a very interesting story. I wish my godmother was still alive now. I'd love to ask her in depth, but that's the basics of the story. I remember my mum telling me about it. And the next one is one my dad told me of when he was a kid, going over, again on the bottom half of the Burlish, the Bullet Pitch, and he was with his best mate, and they looked up at the top half of the Burlish, and they could see the sort of TV radio mast there, the radio tower mast, you know, which stands out quite a while away. And they said that as they were looking at it, they could just sort of see it disappearing, which is like weird. And the next minute, they said that it had disappeared, and they looked over to like one side or something, or through a hedge, one of the two, and saw like a man in like very old day clothing around a fire, and this bloke just sort of looked up at them, and my dad and his mate ran, and the next minute, everything seemed normal again. You know, this bloke in his fire had gone, and the TV, radio mast, whatever, had appeared again. And he described it as if he had, like, I'm pretty sure he'd said it was like a time slip or something, like, which sounds like something out of Doctor Who. It's one of those stories where you like believe it or you're not, because it is a very, like, as I say, a very Doctor Who-y sounding kind of story, I suppose, as far as I'm concerned. But I thought it was interesting, but he did tell me that anyone that him and his best mate tried to tell of this experience, everyone was like, oh, you've been watching too much Star Trek and Doctor Who and all that. But it's one of those things, it's like, sort of take it as you want, I suppose. I mean, I've never experienced anything UFO. I've never experienced a UFO in the sky, although that would be cool. And I've never experienced a form of time slip or anything. But I believe that would also be cool, because, for one, I believe, you know, I don't believe time travel is a straight line of, you know, cause and effect, you know, happens and finishes. I believe, as it is a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. But anyway, but yeah, I believe there is more to time, you know, it would be cool to experience. And as for UFOs, I do believe that we're not the only civilization in the galaxy. There's got to be other species. I mean, it's a big enough place. It's a big enough universe. So, but that's just my beliefs, but I've never experienced anything like it. So I thought I'd get that one clear. But you know, the stories I found interesting. Another one, I suppose. I can't remember if the video's up on the channel. I should have checked beforehand. But it was when me and Gary went to the Puxton Mill in Kidderminster. It was an old rope mill, and we couldn't go in it because it's literally fallen to bits inside. I still hope we can flutter our eyes at someone and nicely and hope to go in there with some hard hats on if it makes anyone who owns the building feel better. Which we met the owner, nice bloke. But we couldn't go in, but I've seen photos of someone who did go in that mill, and it does look like it's frozen in time. Like, there's lots of old stuff there from many moons ago. But with what we could do, I found interesting. You got a feeling from the place. It's very old, and when Gary stood on this chair we found outside, he put his phone in. There was this gap above the door that was boarded up, and he shone his video in there, and you could see a perfect pure white orb come sort of fly towards the camera and off again, like pure white. And you can hear him on the video. He gets really excited and tells me, which naturally I would have done the same. It's quite cool. And another one was when we found this other door that was boarded up, but there was a hole in the bottom as if someone had kicked it in, and you could get your hand in, and he put his video in there, and he heard what sounded like someone kicking or tapping something really hard in there. So to me, it's pretty obvious there's some activity there, but I just wish we could go in there and have a proper look around. But I thought I'd mention them because I can't remember if the video's on the channel. Like I said, something tells me it is, but I thought I'd give that a little explanation because we couldn't really do a lot because of not being able to go in. But yeah, otherwise I think that's the other stories. Are the only other stories that I can remember that I forgot to mention in the other video. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to me babble on about them. Yeah, I can't think of anything else to say. So I hope you enjoyed me listening to me talk about them. All of you take care of yourselves, and hopefully in the near future this year, me and Gary will get some more videos up from wherever we manage to go. But in the meantime, take care, and see ya.